Now, I want you to forget what other YouTubers have been saying, because in this video, I'm going to do the definitive Zelda tier list. I'm going to be ranking all the games from worst to best, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so I was kind of playing about this being the definitive edition. This is just my opinions on how I see the Zelda games. Now, a lot of you may not agree with my picks, and that's fine. Tell me your tier list in the comments down below. What's your favorite Zelda game? What's your least favorite Zelda game? Anyways, let's get into the video. So, introducing my tier list. First, we got S tier for really good games, A tier for good games, but you know, they couldn't get into S, B tier for mid games, C tier for mid bad games ish, D tier for bad games. There's a just no tier, and this one's special for a certain game and the ones I never played. Now, I played all the Zelda games, but like Zelda CDI and stuff, I've never really played those games, so I'm probably gonna put them here. Now, the CDI games are not official Zelda games, so do keep that in mind. Anyways, what better way to start than with the first game, the one that started it all, The Legend of Zelda. For me, I've played it, but it's not a good game per se. I'm not really a retro person, so I didn't really enjoy it as much, but I do have a lot of respect for the game that started this whole beautiful franchise, and for that reason alone, I have to put it like around C tier. So I can't really disrespect it and put it in a tier lower than C. Now, Miyamoto has stated that the inspiration for Zelda came from his experience playing as a kid in the Kyoto region of Japan. So that's pretty cool. As for the story, it was actually not integrated into the game as much. There was a beginning and there was an end, but most of the story points you got from the manual that you had to read to know what was going on. For what it is and what it did, The Legend of Zelda, the first one, will always have my respect. Now, the next one is the one that I really feel passionate about. So for context, I think every Zelda game is good. Now, there are ones that I like more and I dislike more. That's why we're doing this tier list. But the only Legend of Zelda game that I dislike with a passion is Zelda II. I hate that game so much. It is difficult. It is weird. I'll give it that it tried something new than the first one, and I'm never opposed to that, but it tried very bad things. And I remember when you die, you have to start from the beginning. That's so bad. That's bad game design. And it really wasn't a fun experience. It was the only Zelda game that I really dislike. Like, it's bad in all sense of the matter, really bad. So for that reason, and that reason alone, I'm just gonna put it in the just no. I made a whole category for this thing because I hate it. Now, if you really like the game and want to tell me why you like the game, please let me know. And as a Zelda fan who likes a little bit in each and every one of the games, Zelda 2 is the one where I'm just like, no, don't at me at it, cap, whatever, 100% factual, this thing is trash. Anyways, moving on. Alright, now on to better games. Now we have A Link to the Past. Now, this game is really iconic and it always gets compared to Ocarina of Time, even though they're kind of different games. But for the 2D Zelda games, Link to the Past is one of the best. Now, I will say it's pretty cool and it's actually a really awesome game, but it's not as hype as people put it out to be. So for that, I'm going to put it in the B tier because it's still enjoyable. It kind of took aspects from the first Zelda and the second one, added a whole new ton of things, made the story a bit better and fleshed out. Yeah, it's still a basic story, but it's a really solid game and I understand the hype around it, especially for the people who grew up with it. I started gaming on the GameCube, so this was a bit before my time. But when I went back to play, it was still a great time and I enjoyed it. But I don't really like retro games as much, so it didn't really age well for me. And that's where one of my favorite 2D Zelda games comes in, and that is The Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds. This game is everything I wanted in Link to the Past and then some. Now, A Link Between Worlds is not really a remake of Link to the Past, but they share a lot in common. I really love the gameplay with the painting mechanics and how to solve puzzles using it. It was really creative and it was really fun, and I just really enjoyed it. It's a solid 2D Zelda game and it's one of my favorite 2D Zelda games. And for that reason, I'm going to put it in, I'm really kind of conflicted, but I think I'm going to put it in A. Now next on the list we have The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. It's a really good game on paper. It's different, it's unique, it's on an island. Zelda isn't even there, which is like wow. And Link is actually doing some character growth because when he washes up on the island from wherever he was, he has to find a way to get off the island, and with the help of Marin, sorry if I butchered her name, but she finds you on the beach and she helps you along the way, and you soon find out that this place is not what it seems to be. So it was a very experimental entry into the series. I feel like every time Nintendo makes a Zelda game, they start off with the really good one and they like to get experimental with the next one, which I love that. It adds a lot of spice to the series and it adds a lot of new people to the series and a nice change of pace for us Zelda fans out there. So for that, I'm going to put it nicely in tier B. So Nintendo did something really weird because recently we got a remake of Link's Awakening with this new chibi art style that I just love to bits. It has a lot of quality of life changes and it just made me fall in love with the game over again. So for that, I am going to put it in the A category. Now if you see a trend, I usually put the older versions down a peg and then the remake ones up a peg. That's just again because I don't like retro games. Now for the next game, we're going to enter the 3D realm with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Arguably one of the best Zelda games out there, both critically and from fans. Now there's a lot of argument on does it deserve the hype and all that stuff. I think it does. It's a really good game. Now this game did something really important for the future of the franchise, and that is adding 3D. Now what I loved about Ocarina of Time was the scope and like the feeling of adventure. Even though it was for the 64 and it wasn't that big or vast, it felt big and vast, and when you're a kid, stuff like that blows your mind. But not only that, it is one of the few games where I could put on my the villains actually won list, because in the second half of Ocarina of Time, Link's older and Ganon won. Everything's in ruin. So the second half of the game, you have to try to defeat Ganon for good. Now, what I didn't like about Ocarina of Time is that dungeon with all the scary mummies that try to hump you. For some reason, I really hated that dungeon. It was a slog. I was a kid, and if I'm scared of scary games as an adult right here, right now at 28, imagine me as a kid witnessing all that. I was like traumatized. So with all that, I'm going to put Ocarina of Time in the category A. Now you might be wondering, why didn't you put an S, Mandy? You said it was one of your favorites. Well, that's because Nintendo decided to remaster it for the 3DS with enhanced visuals, quality of life changes, and a whole host of new features, which I think runs better, feels better, and it's the best way to experience Ocarina of Time. So I'm going to put Ocarina of Time, the 3D version, in the S rank. Now you can't go around talking about Ocarina of Time without mentioning its sequel, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. One of Nintendo's most riskiest and weirdest projects, but it turned out fantastic. Now personally, it took me a while to play Majora's Mask because I remember I had a demo CD for the GameCube and it scared me. Like, I got really scared, so I didn't want to play. And when the moon just blew up everything, I was like, oh my god, no. And I didn't get the time mechanic. So when I was a kid, I really hated the game. But as I grew older and played it myself, I was like, man, this is a stroke of genius. This game is so good. And this all goes back to the thing I said before, where Nintendo would release a Zelda game and then the next one would kind of be experimental. Majora's Mask is a great example of that because they got really frisky with this one, and it really pays off because Majora's Mask is as good, if not better, than Ocarina of Time in some aspects, and that's how a sequel should be done in my opinion. The story itself is very mysterious, and to this day people still theorize what the heck went on in Majora's Mask. It's a very different world, and you got that ugly, scary moon just staring down at you, and plus the added pressure of the time, because in 3 days the moon would hit and everybody would die. The main story and side quests are amazing. The gameplay plays a lot like Ocarina. It's serviceable and it's actually pretty fun. The puzzles and dungeons are pretty cool as well. I'm gonna put it in A because even though I didn't like the time mechanic and it made doing side quests really hard, Nintendo did a smart move like in Ocarina of Time and they made a remaster for the 3DS. Now I'm gonna put this in S rank because it fixes a lot of the problems that I had with the first one. So I think the 3DS remaster of Majora's Mask is the definitive rate to play if you want to enjoy it. But please tell me in the comments down below, do you prefer the older Majora's Mask and Ocarina or the more recent ones? So let's finish off the Game Boy ones with Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. This one honestly didn't really click with me. I like that they experimented with different stories, introducing new characters. It's kind of one of those games where I did enjoy it, but it was kind of meh to me. So for that, I'm going to put it in C. And they did that whole Pokemon thing where you buy one version with the other version. I didn't like that and I'm glad they stopped doing that, honestly. Alrighty, now on to the Game Boy Advance, and that is with Zelda and the Minish Cap. The Minish Cap was a very unique game because it changed art styles. So now Link looks very cartoonish and adorable. I personally love it. Toon Link is one of my favorite art styles, but the game itself is actually really good. So basically you are shrunken, so you're now a Minish, you're tiny, and a lot of the puzzles revolve around going tiny and then getting big. And also your hat. Your hat could talk. Your hat has a sentient duck on it that is very rude but has a heart of gold, and his name is Enslow, and you also have to help him find his memories. Also in the Minish Cap you have a new villain called Vati, and I always love villains in Zelda games because we always get Ganon, so we need more villains, and I love the implementation of Vati. It's just an overall cute adventure that I really enjoyed. And for that, I'm going to put it in the B tier. The next game I want to talk about is Four Swords. Now with Four Swords, you and your friends embark on a journey. You can have up to 4 players, hence the name Four Swords, and they all have a different color Link. There's the red Link, the purple, the blue, and the green. It's one of those games where you're gonna have to have your group of friends making it memorable than the game itself being memorable. So for that, I am going to put it in the D category. Now while we're on the theme of multiplayer Zelda games, the next one is The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. Now this one's weird because it takes a lot from Four Swords, but with 3 characters, it relies a lot on multiplayer. So if you want to play by yourself, you have to carry each of the golems like totem style and do it yourself and place them on the puzzles instead of your friends doing it, and it is just so not fun. So I'm gonna put it right where Four Swords is. Next we're gonna tackle The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. This takes the Toon Link style as well, and it fits really well. This is for the 3DS, and a lot of people have mixed feelings about it. I really liked it. I didn't love it, but it was really fun. It had unique puzzles. I remember where there was a puzzle where I was spending hours trying to figure it out and what it meant, and I got so pissed that I snapped my 3DS, not snapped it broken, but just like closed it, and then when I opened back up, that was the key to the puzzle. That's what you had to do. You had to close your DS and then open it, and that was the puzzle. And oh my god, I felt so dumb. But I do like the story and your companion and being out in the sea, and it uses a lot of DS gimmicks which could turn a lot of people off, and not gonna lie, it got really annoying for me too. But overall, it was a cute game and I really enjoyed it. The story was cute as well. And for this one, I'm going to put you in the C. C, get it? Because it's in the C. Okay. Alright, moving on to The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. I can say Spirit Tracks a lot of people forget about because of Phantom Hourglass and the gimmicks and stuff, and it does use the DS gimmicks a lot, but for me, Spirit Tracks is way better than Phantom Hourglass by a long shot. Number 1, the music is awesome. It's so underrated in the franchise. And number 2, you get to actually play as Zelda, and she accompanies you through the journey to find her body. Is really cute, and their dynamic is just adorable. So for spirit tracks, I'm gonna bump that to a B. Now moving on to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. This game is very polarizing actually, but it's one of my favorite Zelda games. The whole sailing mechanic, the islands, the music is just top tier, and even the way they portrayed Ganondorf in this game. He is very smart and calculating, and I love Link and his journey, starting from his grandma's house to being a hero. The side characters are awesome. It's just an amazing adventure. It was just one of those games where I wake up early and just start playing it as a kid, and even as an adult when I played the HD version, I still felt that same wonder and adventure that I did as a kid. So for that, I am going to bump this baby up to the top where it deserves. So I put the HD edition, not the regular one, because the HD, number 1, looks better. Number 2, it adds quality of life changes, and it helped fix that very annoying part about finding the Triforce pieces. Next, we're gonna talk about the complete opposite from Wind Waker, and that is Twilight Princess. Me and Twilight Princess have a history. First, I hated it. I really didn't like it. It was boring, it was dark, it was dull, it was blah. But then when I played the HD version, I found some appreciation over it. Like, I found a lot of good things to love about it. Not as good as Wind Waker by a long shot, but it's still a very solid Zelda game, and it does a lot of cool things. I like Midna and her adventure. The story is a little bit weird, and I do not like this incarnation of Zelda. She literally does nothing all day. For that, I am going to put Twilight Princess in the C category. Alright, next is a game that I've never played but I've heard, so I'm gonna put into the never played category, is Link's Crossbow Training. So this game that's next on my list was actually my favorite Zelda game of all time for the longest time, and that is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. This one had a lot of mixed feelings because of the motion controls, but I felt like it was peak Zelda. I was just enjoying the story. I actually really enjoyed the motion controls too, because it made me feel like I was playing in the game, and it was cool to swipe and use it like a sword. I thought all that was great. A lot of people didn't like it, and it's a lot of people's least favorite Zelda game, but for me, it was my favorite Zelda game of all time for a long time. And I recently did a live stream of the whole game, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description down below. But it's not my favorite Zelda game of all time anymore, and that's mainly because when I played the Switch version, it opened my eyes a little to the problems that it had, but it's still second favorite, which is great. So I'm going to put this bad boy over here. Now I put the Switch port because that's where they added a lot of the quality of life changes. Let me add a row for the favorite game. Next we have the CDI games. I've never played them, never want to play them. I've seen Peanut Butter Gamers playthrough of it, and yeah, it's jank. So no. Die. Now on to the Warriors games. I love Nintendo Warriors games, and it all started with Zelda, and I love them to bits. It's really fun, high action, combat, different fan favorite characters just coming together. It's just a lot of fan service and a lot of fun. Now Hyrule Warriors Calamity of Ganon is a bit different because the story makes somewhat sense. I'm gonna put Hyrule Warriors C and Hyrule Warriors Calamity of Ganon in the B category. And now to the last one. I know there's these 3, but I already put them on the list. I just put the updated versions. Now on to the last one. My favorite Zelda game of all time to this date is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Right up here. Breath of the Wild did a lot of things for the franchise. It kind of works like Ocarina of Time, where Ocarina of Time introduced 3D, Breath of the Wild introduced open world. Breath of the Wild's open world is really good. So good that a lot of games to this day try to replicate it because it just works so great. Being able to look at a mountain and go climb it and to just adventure, not being handhold. It all goes back into the first Zelda game game where Miyamoto wanted to portray that same type of feeling. But you know, back then with limitations and stuff, you couldn't do a Breath of the Wild. There are things I don't like about it though. The story took a really big hit, but I think it was worth the sacrifice in the end. That's why The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is my favorite Zelda game of all time, and only time will tell if Tears of a Kingdom lives up to that expectation. I know it's gonna be good, so it's gonna be up there, but is it gonna be as good as Breath of the Wild? Only time will tell. So that is the end of the video. This is my tier list. If you agree with me or disagree, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your opinions on it. If you like this video, hit that like button, and if you like my content as well, then please subscribe. I would appreciate it. You can follow me on my socials in the description down below. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and as always, play a good game. Peace.